The next presenter is Margie Taylor. She's written three novels, and today she's going to read from her most recent, The Harrow Road. All three are published novels on different publishers, it appears. She's also won many, many awards, including taking first place for a story that I really enjoyed, Life of Writers, in a summer contest. Her short story, Sweet Thursday, which was a fabulous story. I think you sent it to me, so I quite enjoyed that one. But today she's going to read from her most recent novel, The Harrow Road, Maggie Taylor.
Thank you. You won't have any trouble hearing me. I spent 30 years talking on radio, so I project. You might actually want to sit back. I just very briefly. So hey Jesse. So my grandson's here. My background was at CBC, but like a heck of a lot of people at CBC, I always wanted to write. So I did. I always thought, the great thing about having finally a novel published, you'd be walking down the street and people would be stopping and saying hello and worshiping you, and of course, none of that happens. But that's okay, I keep writing anyway. So, Some of Skippy's Blues was my first novel in 1997. It won the Alberta Writers Guild Award for Best Novel that year. The next year I did a radio play called Murder in the Atrium, which is about a not named 50-something broadcaster who's being pushed out by a young weather girl, and she ends up, I'm not giving anything away, she ends up pushing. Any of you have ever been in the CBC in Toronto? It's built around a 10-story atrium. So she pushes the girl over the atrium. She murders her competitor. It seemed like a good solution at the time. So that was that. And then a few years later, New West Press was kind enough to publish Displaced Persons, which won a few awards. And that was based on the murder of a friend of mine a few years earlier back in Thunder Bay, the unsolved murder capital of Canada. And then since then, I've had a few others published. Harrow Road took me 10 years to research and write. It's based on the life of my great-grandmother, Annie Elizabeth Morgan. In 1879, her husband took off to South Africa, left her with 3 children. She went into the workhouse on Harrow Road, the Paddington workhouse on Harrow Road, was there for 2 years, and then ended up training as a nurse and got out. This book is a story of her life. It's creative nonfiction. I'm working on a second one, a sequel, which is based on the life of her son, who was my grandfather, Edward. So I thought I'd read the first chapter. As I was saying to Cheryl, it's not a knee slapper, as you probably guessed. But I'm kind of proud of it, and so Harrow Road. The child couldn't be buried while the ground was frozen. It was bitterly cold. The paper said it was the coldest November since they started keeping records, and it followed on the heels of a wet, dismal summer when the sun never shone. Fruit refused to ripen, potatoes rotted in the ground. What vegetables made it to market were weak and tasteless, priced out of reach for all but the rich. Day after day, the wretched, gloomy skies endured, banishing the songbirds and dragonflies to other, more congenial parts of the earth. The yellow fog settled over the city, crept through the cracks in the doors and window frames, wormed itself into their very bones and blood. They kept their coats on indoors, stopped the crack under the door with bits of rag, pasted sheets of newsprint over the windows, which darkened the rooms and did nothing to keep out the biting cold. In the end, they tore them down. They said the French and Dutch were having the worst of it. People were dying of the cold in those countries, but it was wretched in England too. The River Exe was covered in ice, and parts of the Thames were frozen. And Bill out of work for almost 3 months, unable to find a single print shop or weekly paper in want of a journeyman printer. Too many men out of work, too many shops closing down. Comes home after a day spent tramping the pavements in the cold, and refuses the meager supper she'd kept warm in the kettle. Give it to the children. I had something at the pub. But he didn't. You have to eat. You can't go looking for work on an empty stomach. By November, he's pale and haggard in the face, has lost a stone in weight. Lies about it. Mind over matter is what. I feel better now than I ever did. My head is clear. I can think. Her own clothes hang on her. She sleeps in them to keep warm. Also to avoid seeing the way her body is changing for lack of food. Whatever they have goes to the children. To the boy, of course, he gets the lion's share. But the girls, too. Can't let them starve. And so she joins the midnight lineup outside the butcher shop, waiting in the cold for a free soup bone. Humiliating. Women she never thought to have to speak to, now she's one of them. Tightens her cloak around her, tries to keep apart, but it's useless. She needs that meat bone as much as any of them, and they know it. The doctor is all sympathy and kindness at first. Can you afford to pay for the funeral? Yes, we have burial insurance for the boy. We bought it in May. Really? Just a few months ago? And now your child is dead. He won't sign the certificate. Bill says it's because of the stories that have come out, people killing their children for the insurance money. This will have to go to inquest. Gives them a piece of paper, tells them to get down to the coroner's court on the South Wharf Road on Saturday morning. And aren't they treated like criminals when they get there? When did you first notice your son was unwell? Did you not think to take him to St. Mary's? Have all your children been insured or only the boy? Bill does all the talking. We thought it was from falling in the canal, thought he'd caught a chill. Didn't think he was as sick as he was until it was too late. No, we didn't insure all the children. We might have done, but we couldn't afford it. In the end, the jury confirms what they already know: scarlet fever. Death from natural causes. He has not been smothered, strangled, poisoned, or drowned. The doctor signs the certificate, and they're given back the body of their son. But no apology. No one says, sorry for your troubles, sorry for the death of your boy. It was a proper funeral with nothing spared. The men in mourning suits, the women in borrowed black from head to toe, crepe gowns, long black veils, black gloves, handkerchiefs edged in black. The girls, too, must have their dresses suitably dyed. Owning only one dress apiece means they'll be dressed in black long after the obligatory year. But it must be done properly for this, their oldest boy. What does it cost to bury a 3-year-old? Hearse with 1 horse, mourning coach with 1 horse, stout elm coffin covered with fine black, plate of inscription, lid ornaments, 3 pairs of handles, mattress, pillow, a pair of side sheets, use of velvet pall, mourner's fittings, coachman with hat bands and gloves, attendant with silk hatband. Total cost, £5. Bill says they'll need to give the pallbearers extra gin to make up for standing out in the cold. Don't, she says, it'll go to their heads, make them rowdy. He doesn't listen and gives it to them anyway. But thankfully, they don't make a scene. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. They stand on opposite sides of the coffin, hats and bonnets sodden and flat, coattails and overskirts whipping in the wind. She thinks she might faint. Her mother, guessing, puts out a protective arm to steady her. Bill keeps apart, taking no comfort in any of this. There is no heaven for him, no hope of reunion in the hereafter. She can't bear the thought. Frightening to think of there being nothing when you die. Just closing your eyes and letting go into what? Nothing. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you, and if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also. When the vicar's done, they lift the box and place it with the others in the stone vault, waiting for the spring, waiting for the ground to thaw so they can bury the dead. Don't! She wants to say they mustn't go, mustn't leave the child, her child, alone in this place, away from his mother. He'll be afraid. He's never liked the dark. Bill and the other men head to the pub. The women from the neighborhood gather in the parlor, sharing bits of food and gossip. Unable to eat, she paces from room to room, picking up bits of William and setting them down again. A tin plate soldier preparing to shoot. 3 clay marbles in a jam jar. The wooden sword his father carved. A football made of rags. Her mother makes tea with laudanum. Drink this, she says, all of it. It'll do you good. It tastes bitter in spite of the sugar. His toys, Mama. Won't he need them? He should have them with him. Go to sleep now. It'll be better in the morning, you'll see. Her eyes closed, but she can't stop seeing. William laid out in his little wooden box, lost in that terrible sleep. Early morning, still dark. He stands in the middle of the room, holding his printer stick, his case on the floor beside him. He hasn't changed from the day before, but he has shaved. I'm leaving now, for good. I won't be back. You can't. I said goodbye to the girls last night. They'll be all right. You will too. You have a family. You have a wife and children. My son's dead, and I'm leaving. She wants to say he has another son. She wants to remind him there's another boy, not 6 months old, who needs his father. Where are you going? You can't just leave. Come to bed, Bill. Talk to me. I'm done talking. We have nothing to say to each other. She's a fool. She throws the words out from her corner of the room, not caring if the girl's asleep just inches away, here or not. Not caring if she wakes the baby. She's a fool and you're a coward. You deserve each other. He says nothing, picks up his case and leaves, shutting the door softly behind him. Somebody calls out to him, but she doesn't hear him reply. 2 days later, Bridges stands in the doorway, cap in hand, not wanting to look her in the eye. He's gone, Annie. Shipped out this morning on a steamer to Cape Town. I thought I should let you know. Emigrated. He did what he said he would. Bill always did what he said he would. He left as easy as if he never had a wife or children, never owned a single reason to stay. The money. He would have needed papers, money for his passage, and the woman she believes he took with him. Bridges says it was the union that gave Bill the money, the London Society of Compositors. Emigration relief, they call it, glad to be rid of men who aren't working. Let it be another country's problem. It takes a moment for it to settle what Bridges is saying. He planned this. He would have made application weeks, maybe months ago. It wasn't because of William. It wasn't because their son died. While she was standing in line at the butcher's, while she was haggling with the rag and bone man for a decent price for their bedding, all the while he was planning his escape. Was he alone? Was she with him? Would he have had the cheek to bring his mistress to the house of his friend? They share everything, he and Bridges, always have. If Bill has run off with that girl from the bindery, Bridges would know. She's aching to ask, but her pride prevents her. Bridges fumbles in his coat pocket, pulls out 2 10-bob notes and gives them to her. I wish it was more, Annie. I really do. It's generous. Times are hard in the newspaper trade. She thanks him, asks if he'll stay for supper, but he says he must be off. Clara's expecting him home. In reality, he's being kind. He's not about to eat what little she has. She sits at the table nursing the baby and tries to work out how far she can stretch a pound. If she avoids the landlord and doesn't pay the greengrocer, she can give the butcher 8 shillings on account and have enough left to keep food on the table for a month. Or she can pay the coal dealer and keep them warm, but starving. Food or firewood, shoes or shelter, the poor man's choice, which of course is no choice at all. Thank you.